Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Now, independent schools have achieved an overall pass rate of 98.46% for last year's National Senior Certificate exams. Now, according to the Independent Examinations Board, this is a slight improvement from the 98.42% achieved in 2022. The board said that 88.59% of the pupils achieved entry to study towards degrees at tertiary education. Joining me now from the IEB, I'd like to welcome the CEO, Confidence Dikgole. Confidence, thank you so much for joining us and good day to you.
Thank you so much, really, for having me. It's a privilege and an honor. Thank you so much to you and your viewers.
The honor is ours. Our Confidence, we're talking off air. Those sleepless nights are over. A real great achievement, is it, to achieve, over 98% for those matric exams?
It's a huge achievement. Look, we had, for the first time in the history of the IEB, we had an increase in terms of the number of candidates that wrote of 1,665. And so we were a bit anxious before the exam and while we were awaiting the results as to what the outcome was going to be, considering the huge increase in numbers. So for us to obtain 98.46, it's a huge achievement. In 2022, our pass rate was 98.42. So to have this upward trajectory in terms of our overall percentage, it's really something that's commendable. And as I keep saying, really, we just want to applaud the class of 2023. They did very well. They acquitted themselves admirably. And also shout out to all the educators out there who did a good job in ensuring that these learners were taught very well and ready to can face the exam last year. So really, it's a happy day for all of us at the IEB.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, seeing these figures, I think really shows the upward trajectory, as you mentioned, of our class of 2023. Confidence, and there was a lot of challenges, of course, most of which being, load shedding and the energy crisis. And I think, mentally and psychologically, these students had to tackle all of that. And I think, for them to overcome that really speaks volumes of their mental fortitude as students at this age to go ahead and really perform well during these exams.
Absolutely. And, and you mentioning load shedding, but there's always other many challenges that these kids have to deal with on a daily basis. And I was saying this morning on another platform, referring to the escalating mental health issues that schools are now contending with. It's real, it's happening, and schools are finding it very difficult to deal with this. But for me, the worry and concern is where this pressure comes from. It comes from the society, it comes from parents, it comes from even us in the education system sector, where these kids are expected or required to perform and do and obtain straight A's in all the subjects. It's so much competition, and how we then report on the performance of the class of 2023. It's another issue. I mean, fine, to celebrate the 89.46%, it's a good thing. We have to acknowledge that. But can we please pause and celebrate every single child, regardless of what pass they've obtained, but just celebrate them and make them feel that you've done very well. And those that didn't do well, it's not the end of the world. They just have to shake themselves up and forge ahead. And there's so many opportunities out there which they can tap into, and eventually they get to arrive to where they want to arrive.
You mentioned something important, Confidence, about mental health, because earlier on another platform, I was listening to the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and they mentioned something important, that it's not the end of the world if you do not make it in matric. And that's, I'm sure, the message you as a board were trying to put out there, that look, if you don't make it in matric, you still have that other chance. And I'm sure that was a message that you were trying to put across also, because mental health issues are real and they're affecting even those in matric.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. I've had conversations with the South African Depression and Anxiety Group just prior to us releasing the results, exactly about this subject. trying to understand from their point of view the impact of matric and this whole hullabaloo around matric. I'm sorry to use that word. And what came from them was exactly what you say that they said, they communicated. The pressure that the society and the system brings to bear on these young ones. And so for me, really, it's an appeal. And I'm hoping that somebody out there is listening, that we begin to just shift the narrative around reporting on the matric performance, but also recognizing these learners, as I've just said, but being gentle, being kind. We're not saying that learners should not study and do well. They must do that. Obviously, they must do that. But I'm saying let's recognize all the efforts.
Confidence, obviously, we've been, as a country, actually as an entire globe, affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. But obviously, last year 2023 and 2022 were years where we saw, a sense of normality returning. How much of that has, played quite a significant role? I ask that because obviously social distancing had taken place during COVID-19. Many students cannot really have that camaraderie with their fellow peers in terms of checking up how the exams did, motivating each other. So how much of a change now that we return back to normality could there have been in terms of that upward trajectory of the percentage of those who had passed matric?
Look, from our point of view, and this is after sort of having conversations with schools, the class of 2023, these learners were in grade 10 in 2021, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
2021. And if you remember very well, in 2021, learners had gone back to class. Okay, it was in 2020 where there was a struggle. So they entered grade 10 in a year where things had sort of normalized, if I can put it that way. And grade 12 is a build up from grade 10. So they were prepared from grade 10, and this was under sort of normal circumstances, if I can use that. So really, we do not believe that there could have been any impact on them as a result of COVID-19. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Yes. Yeah, no. What I'm asking is, obviously pre-COVID, you had, students can, how do I put it this way, interact more with their peers. Obviously, during those COVID years, you had the masks and you had the social distancing, and of course, all of those things sort of took away what would have been the camaraderie you would see between students. So what I'm asking is that obviously you've got 2 years of pure out-and-out normality, and I think as the youth, this is something that they appreciate, the fact that there is normality and that there can be even more camaraderie between themselves as peers.
Yeah. And yeah, look, I think it's something that we all appreciate, including us as adults in our workspaces.
Yes, definitely.
That we can interact, we can hold meetings, in person, which is much easier than what we actually experienced during COVID-19. And so I think the same thing applies to these learners. I think whereas we keep saying that COVID-19 taught us that education can, to some extent, continue virtually, but for teaching and learning and education, it works best when they're in the classroom.
Confidence
for that camaraderie.
Yes,
that he's talking about.
Yes, no, definitely. Confidence. The education system, obviously, of course, this is from an independent point of view. There is, of course, a continuous upward trajectory, and this can only speak of how the dedication of, as you mentioned, educators, but also the pupils in working together in order to make sure that these higher pass rates and these higher percentages are there and that it's maintained all of the time.
Yeah, true. So the steady, consistent upward trajectory is an indicator of several things. And for us at the IEB is an indication of a system that is stabilizing, or a system that is stable rather. Mm-hmm. You see, when in the business of exams and assessment, that's what you want to see. You want to see consistency from one year to another. should there be an outlier from one year to another, that's when you get worried and you want to look into what could have gone wrong. But when there is a steady increase in performance, like what we're seeing now, it really speaks well about the standards that are being maintained by those that set the question papers, but also by schools that then ensure that they teach towards the standard that has been set previously.
Confidence, Dikgole, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live. Much appreciated, and enjoy the well-deserved rest.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much. That's Confidence Dikgole, the
Yes.
CEO of the Independent Examinations Board. Of course, earlier on you saw the National Senior Certificate being released by Minister of Education, Angie Motshekga. And of course, do stay tuned to Hilaal TV. We'll be bringing you more with regards to celebrating the achievements of many pupils who, of course, passed matric, and of course we'll be taking or going further in their careers with regards to tertiary education. After the break, I'll have your latest in news, finance, and sports. Do stay tuned.